The Geet Ruler episode number 114 explanation. You three just have to receive one move from me. As Mu Chen's calm and indifferent-sounding voice slowly rang across the sky, the clamoring noises originally present within the region had turned deathly silent, seemingly in an instant. The jaws of quite a few people started to turn slightly agape, their gazes turning blank as they looked towards the thin figure before them. For a moment, they seemed to have a feeling as if they had mistakenly heard him say those words. Not only did Mu Chen want to take on 3 people by himself, he had even wanted to use just one move to deal with them. The mouths of people could not help twitching in response. If not for the abnormal situation before them, they might have already started uncontrollably laughing and sneering, as Mu Chen's words were truly too rampant. The 3 people before him were absolutely not just some ordinary people. They were powerful figures that were now ranked among the top 16 in the point rankings. Although their places were at the bottom of the rankings, the might of their strength would cause extreme dread and fear even in experts of first-grade spirit disaster. Although Mo Xiao and the other 2 might not have passed through the second level of their spirit disaster, they had absolutely started making contact with it already. Compared to them, experts at first-grade spirit disaster still had some disparity in strength and power. After seeing Mu Chen's ability when he broke Xiao Huang's heaven-binding spiritual array, there was already no one that dared to underestimate him again. However, despite that, there was no one that would be able to contend against 3 experts placed on the point rankings with their individual might, no matter how optimistic the case. This fellow. Hearing Mu Chen's words, Wu Yingying had tightly knitted her eyebrows. Staring at Mu Chen's figure, she said, "Exactly what is he up to?" "That's because he wants to show his superiority to Ji Xian by making a stand now," replied Wu Ling with a smile. Ji Xian had sent people over to feel him out. Therefore, he wants to turn Ji Xian's probe into a palm and send a heavy slap back. A while ago, Ji Xian had defeated 3 experts on the point rankings by himself, sending them tumbling down from the top 16. From then on, his name shook the entire Great Spiritual Academy tournament. What Mu Chen wants to do now is precisely the same. Furthermore, he wants to be even more vicious. A one-move deal? Won't this be too risky? Wu Yingying retracted the word rampant before she could speak it. Having some understanding of Mu Chen, as well as his character, she knew that it was impossible for him to get hot-headed and lose all rationale in his thinking. You can be considered to have some understanding. This fellow never speaks without thinking. A bright light slightly condensed within the eyes of Wu Ling staring at the figure before his eyes, he said with a faint smile, therefore, he should have a certain level of assurance. Ha ha. I'm indeed extremely curious to see exactly how he's going to accomplish this with his strength at merely spiritual energy disaster. Could he be relying on spiritual arrays? If he plans to do so, he would have to arrange an array comparable to the rank 5 combination diagram, the heaven-binding spiritual array, to be able to deal with 3 experts at first-grade spirit disaster, right? Would Mo Xiao and the other 2 give him such time to do so? Hearing her brother's words, Wu Yingying wrinkled her eyebrows once more, while a slightly ugly feeling appeared within her heart. As the sounds of whispers blotted the skies and shook the earth, Mo Xiao and the other 2 had similar blank expressions displayed on their faces. Exchanging glances with one another, preposterous and incredulous feelings started to uncontrollably erupt within their eyes. A person whose strength appeared to be merely at the realm of spiritual energy disaster had actually said that he wanted to deal with the 3 of them by himself. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it seemed as if he wanted to deal with them using a single move. Although they knew that Mu Chen's strength should be higher than what his outward appearance was showing, wanting to deal with the 3 of them using a single move. This caused them to feel so much anger and fury to the point of them involuntarily laughing. Does this Mu Chen truly think that he is Ji Xian? Truly impressive, Captain Mu Chen. Mo Xiao could not help giving a sneer. Staring right at Mu Chen, he continued speaking, "From the looks of it, you've also heard about what Ji Xian had done a while back. However, if you truly want to use a similar method to prove that you possess the qualifications to contend with him, I'm afraid that you've found the wrong people to do so." Hearing that, a smile surfaced on the calm, handsome face of Mu Chen while he replied, "From what time did Ji Xian think is above me? The lessons he received from me in the past should be plentiful enough. Those battles during the spiritual road are just experiences and temporary. If you've always treated those as your source of confidence, you'll become extremely disappointed at yourself, said Mo Xiu with a sneer still present on his face. Hearing that, Mu Chen nodded his head in agreement, before replying with a faint smile, "I'll have you guys bring that statement to Ji Xian." Mo Xiu's face instantly twitched slightly when Mu Chen gave his reply, before his gaze turned slightly dark. Exchanging glances with the other two captains beside him, they proceeded to take a step forward. Instantly, 3 tyrannical spiritual energy fluctuations swept out from their bodies like a hurricane. Bang! Bang! As their spiritual energies swept out, spiritual light flashed, as the suppression brought about by the 3 tyrannical spiritual energies rapidly radiated, causing the faces of quite a few groups to turn solemn. Even those captains of powerful groups who had reached the first level of their spirit disaster had their eyes brimming with fear and dread. Indeed, none of the people in the top 16 were one bit mediocre. Behind Mu Chen, the faces of Xu Huang and the others were filled with solemnness. They had similarly not expected that Mu Chen had planned to contend against those 3 powerful people by himself. Although they were somewhat worried for the former, since matters had already progressed to this stage, the only thing they could do was to sit quietly and wait. Shooting a look at Mu Chen's back, Luo Li didn't speak due to her confidence and trust in the former. She similarly knew that Mu Chen would not speak without making any thoughts beforehand. "Oh? Can you do it?" Wen Qingxian could not help shoot a question. Although she had already seen the might of the combination array Mu Chen had arranged while in the remnant of the Divine Wood Palace, from the looks of the current situation, the opposite party would clearly not give him the time to do so. "Didn't I tell you that you can't just shoot such a question out at any random time?" Slightly panning his head, Mu Chen shot a smile towards Wen Qingxian as he gave his reply. A faint blush of embarrassment instantly appeared on Wen Qingxuan's fair and exquisite face, before shooting a fierce glare at Mu Chen. "This fellow actually dares to tease me at such a time." "Relax." Mu Chen took a gentle breath as a faint shade of fierceness appeared on his handsome face. "Since there are people that want to test if I would be any of threat to him, I'll naturally not disappoint him." Hearing that, Wen Qingxian lightly nodded her head, without saying any more words. She knew about the grudges and grievances between Mu Chen and Ji Xian, with seemingly no possibility of reconciliation. If it was in the past, she might have chosen to remain neutral in the face of their confrontation. However, when Mu Chen had rushed across 1,000 miles to help her, this had truly made her consider him as a friend. Therefore, among the two, she would naturally be biased towards Mu Chen. Even though she knew that Ji Xian was an extremely thorny person to deal with, this wasn't something she, Wen Qingxian, would care about. The arrogant and self-confident her would never assume that she would be weaker than Ji Xian. That would have to depend on your performance. As for the few fellows from the Academy Alliance, feel relaxed as none of them will be able to run away, said Wen Qingxian, shooting a faint glare towards Xiao Huang, Xiao Wang and the others standing not far away with her beautiful eyes. Sensing her incoming gaze, a faint sneer surfaced on the faces of Xiao Huang and Xiao Wang, giving them an amused appearance. They were all too clear about the strength of Mo Xiu and the other two. If the two of them were to collaborate, they might have some chance of victory. However, they would absolutely not dare to proclaim their ignorance to be able to defeat the trio with a single move. Hearing her words, Mu Chen slightly nodded his head. With Luo Li and Wen Qingxian present, regardless of how difficult it was to deal with Xiao Huang or Xiao Wang, Mu Chen did not believe that they would be able to do much in the presence of these two girls. Therefore, raising his head up, an indifferent light radiated within his eyes as he locked his gaze onto Mo Xiu and the other two. At this moment, the trio had similarly locked their gazes onto Mu Chen, while a somewhat ugly expression appeared on their faces. "Looks like Captain Mu Chen's truly determined to carry on like this, huh?" Under the profusion of boundless spiritual energies, Mo Xiu's deep voice rang like the roar of thunder, resounding across the entire region. "Since you're truly that confident in yourself, the 3 of us truly want to take a look at exactly how much of your ability matches up to your boasting." The gazes of the trio started to gradually turn fierce as the spiritual energies howling from their bodies grew increasingly rampant. As the spiritual energies pressed against the surrounding air, low muffled explosion sounds erupted. The entire region had now been seemingly perfused by a feeling of suppression brought about by the boundless spiritual energies sweeping out. A few people started to quietly retreat back, since they were able to sense that the battle that was about to take place would be extremely astonishing. As boundless spiritual energies rippled like waves, the faces of Mo Xiu and the other two started to gradually turn cold. "Captain Mu Chen, you should make your move. The three of us are looking forward to face it at any time. However, I have to add that we know of you being a spiritual array master. If you're planning on letting us wait stupidly for you to arrange your spiritual array, I'm afraid that we're unable to let you do so." Noticing the boundless spiritual energies surging from the trio, a faint glint sparkled within Mu Chen's black pupils. The degree of spiritual energy surging from their bodies was a few degrees stronger than ordinary experts at first-grade spirit disaster. Clearly, the trio had already started to touch second-grade spirit disaster. If they were given some more time, there was an extremely high possibility for them to be able to successfully cross this step. Their individual strength wasn't weaker than that Xue Tiando he had bumped into in the remnant of the Divine Wood Palace. In fact, they might even be a tad stronger. Therefore, it was no wonder that there would be so many strange-looking gazes appearing when he made his claim. However, the current him was similarly much stronger than he was while in the remnant of the Divine Wood Palace. Taking a deep breath, Mu Chen slowly closed his eyes. As his hands gentled clapped together, they quietly formed a somewhat shaky and exceedingly mysterious hand seal. Following the completion of the hand seal, faint dark green radiance started to radiate from his palms. Hum. Hum. Gigantic dark green halos, approximated 1,000 meters in radius, started to radiate one after another. As they started to ripple, everyone saw the layer upon layer of luscious trees and plants starting to quietly sparkle with a green light. This was the Divine Wood Scripture. Incomparably gigantic green ripples started to radiate from Mu Chen, with seemingly the entire verdant mountain range being completely enveloped within their radius. This spectacle instantly caused shock and astonishment to appear in the eyes of quite a few people, before being replaced by doubt and suspicion. That's because they weren't able to sense much of any powerful spiritual energy fluctuations from within those green ripples. Mo Xiu and the other two took the spectacle happening before them with calm expressions on their faces. However, their bodies started to quietly tense up. Being able to stand at the top 16, they were naturally not brainless people. From the looks of it, the current spectacle had brought about some doubt in them, and it was this uncertainty that caused fear and dread to surface within their hearts. That's because none of them knew exactly what method Mu Chen was preparing to deal with them. Standing in the air, Mu Chen faintly started to close his eyes. Within the dark green radiance, his hands started to slowly, but resolutely, form mysterious and ancient hand seals. As the hand seals were formed one after another, the dark green ripples that were radiating grew increasingly bright and radiant. Hum. Hum. Unknowingly, some people suddenly started to sense minute shaking that appeared within the mountain range they were on. Suddenly, the face of Wu Ling, who was standing on the top of the mountain peak in the distance, changed as a shadow of shock flashed within his eyes. Slowly lowering his head, he looked towards the verdant sea of trees present on the mountain range. These fluctuations. Bang! Bang! The trembling started to increase in frequency, before everyone was finally able to sense it. In the next moment, all of them noticed a green light erupting from the sea of trees in the mountain range that was brimming with vitality. As the green light hid the sky and covered the earth upon its appearance, the faces of everyone fiercely changed as they sensed extremely powerful spiritual energy fluctuations present within the green light. Furthermore, the spiritual energy present within was brimming with vitality. Compared to ordinary spiritual energy, it appeared to possess even more life and spirituality. Where did all of this spiritual energy come from? Some people could not help crying out in astonishment. It wasn't that they weren't able to sense the flow of spiritual energy present in the heavens and the earth, however, where did all of this vast and boundless spiritual energy come from? That's not right, the source of that spiritual energy seems to be from those trees. Those people with acute senses were able to sense the origin of the spiritual energy. As those words rang out, they had undoubtedly caused shock to fill the hearts of countless people once more. Everyone knew that the myriad of things present within the heavens and earth possessed spirituality, with the trees being amongst them, with the precipitation of spiritual energy happening over an extremely long time. The only difference between them would be in their strengths. However, this spiritual energy was exceedingly hard to mobilize. Wanting to extract spiritual energy present within other people and objects was an extremely difficult matter to accomplish. Only experts that have stepped into the sovereign realm would be able to attempt and get some success out of such a method. However, right before their eyes, such a spectacle had occurred with Mu Chen, someone who was merely at the realm of spiritual energy disaster. Such a shock caused them to be absolutely unable to remain calm and composed any longer. A sliver of shock surfaced on the beautiful faces of Luo Li and Wen Qingxian. Clearly, this was also the first time they have seen Mu Chen displaying such a technique. However, after feeling slightly shocked, Luo Li took a quiet breath of relief, while a somewhat peculiar look appeared in Wen Qingxuan's eyes as she looked towards the back of Mu Chen. Every time she bumped into this youth, he seemed to always bring quite a bit of shock and surprise to people. At this moment, the calm and composed expressions on the faces of Mo Xiu and the other two started to slowly fade away. As their faces started to change, while they stared at the green light rising from the unending sea of trees before their eyes, a look of uncertainty started to fill their eyes. Ignoring the shocked gazes coming from his surroundings, Mu Chen continued to keep his eyes tightly shut, with the speed at which he formed his hand seals starting to slow down. Faint beads of cold sweat started to surface on his forehead, while slivers of paleness flashed across his face. The divine wood scripture was a true greater divine art. Even some sovereign realm experts were unable to possess a divine art of this grade. Therefore, despite Mu Chen's considerable talent, it was absolutely not easy for him to be able to display this divine wood scripture. A faint light of lightning started to flash on the surface of Mu Chen's body. Clearly, he had already started to quietly activate his lightning god's physique, making the display of the divine wood scripture a tad bit easier for him. While this happened, the shaking present within the sea of trees below grew increasingly clear and distinct. Suddenly, Mu Chen's eyes snapped open, with a green light unexpectedly circulating within his black pupils. In the next instant, his hand seals furiously changed, while a deep roar resounded from within his heart. Divine wood scripture, wood to spirit transformation. Mu Chen sent a furious pat down on the verdant sea of trees below. Invisible fluctuations seemed to radiate from his palm print, while faint ripples appeared within the surrounding space. Hum. Hum. Suddenly, dazzling green light erupted from the verdant sea of trees, with the shaking of the earth growing even more rapid. In the next instant, the eyes of everyone present furiously contracted. Before their very eyes, a gigantic tree with luscious green leaves had unexpectedly started turning yellow and was wilting at an astonishing speed. The yellowing and wilting started from a point, before rapidly spreading out. Layer upon layer of yellowing and wilting continued to spread, traveling at astonishing speeds while doing so. As this phenomena continued to spread, within a short span of a dozen breaths, all of the trees within a 10,000-meter radius had unexpectedly yellowed and wilted, appearing to have been drained of all of the spiritual energy present within them. When this phenomena continued to the very limit, those trees had unexpectedly exploded apart, transforming into dust and fluttering about. Bang! Bang! Low and deep sounds akin to firecrackers going off continued to ring out as they crackled and popped. Within a short span of time, the sea of trees had transformed into a bare patch of earth, with thick layers of wood dust left on the surface. Blank expressions of dumbfoundedness filled the faces of everyone as they took in the spectacle before them. Exactly what is this method to actually be so overbearing? Everyone's gazes started to shift, only to see boundless dark green spiritual energy howling towards the air above the already bare mountain range, with soaring vitality present within them. All of this spiritual energy was squeezed out from those exploding trees, with the might of such power causing even the scalps of experts of first-grade spirit disaster to turn numb. As Mu Chen's body slowly descended, he just so happened to land on top of this boundless sea of spiritual energies surging beneath, before raising his head to look towards his front. On the mountain peak before him, a sliver of an ashen shade had appeared on the faces of Mo Xiu and the other two, with their faintly twitching eyebrows clearly revealing the shock present in their hearts. The terrifying spectacle brought about by Mu Chen had clearly shocked the hearts of the trio. At this moment, their eyes were completely filled with solemn expressions, with them not daring to show the slightest bit of neglect. The suppression they felt surging over towards them caused them to even have a feeling as if their bodies were unable to move. What happens next will be up to you three. Sending a faint smile towards Mo Xiao and the other two, Mu Chen proceeded to extend his finger, before giving a gentle tap at the space in front of him. Spiritual Sea Shock Wave. A faint voice rang from his mouth. As he uttered his final word, the black pupils of the youth instantly turned fierce. Appearing as sharp and incisive as the edge of a blade, it caused a chill to appear in their hearts. Bang! A violent shiver shook through the surging spiritual sea before it started to howl. Gigantic fierce waves swept out, blotting the skies akin to a flood that descended from the skies. Without any scruples, they swept across the horizon, appearing just like when Mount Tai was falling over as they pressed down on Mo Xiao and the other two. As the spiritual sea swept out, signs of warping and distortions appearing in the surrounding space. With its shadow enveloping over, the entire region started to turn dim. Upon seeing this, everyone instantly retreated back with explosive actions, all afraid of being part of the collateral caused by the spiritual sea. The impact produced by it would cause even an expert of first-grade spirit disaster to instantly turn into pulp. Extremely ugly expressions had appeared on the faces of Mo Xiao and the other two. Exchanging glances with each other, low roars rang out from their mouths as powerful spiritual energies erupted from their bodies at their full might. At this moment, no longer did the trio dare to hold back the slightest bit. The arrogance present earlier in them due to Mu Chen wanting to deal with them by himself had now been tossed unimaginably far away. Only at this moment did they truly realize why even a monstrous talent like Ji Xian would treat the youth before them as a truly mighty opponent. Fire God's art, flaming dragon burns the heavens. Taking the lead, Mo Xiao clapped his hands together to form a hand seal as his roar rang out. In the next instant, scarlet-red spiritual energy erupted from him, transforming into a gigantic 100-meter-long flaming dragon. Scarlet-red flames seemed to flutter on the surface of this flaming dragon as astonishingly hot temperatures started to radiate from it. Golden Vajra Divine Palm. Golden light erupted from Qiu Ning as his body started to inflate numerous times over. As the golden light flashed from him, he appeared just like a golden Vajra Buddha. With a solemn expression on his face, he sent a palm patting out, causing a gigantic golden glowing palm print to howl out. Willow God's flowers. The skinny and frail-looking Liu San gave a low roar, causing a green glow to radiate from him, before transforming into a gigantic willow tree behind him. As its branches extended, they appeared to be able to hide the skies and cover the earth, whilst radiating with boundless power. At this moment, the trio had respectively displayed their most powerful techniques. Clearly, all of them believed that if they were to show even the slightest bit of restraint, only the word miserable would be able to describe their incoming plight. As vast and powerful spiritual energies flooded the entire region, shock filled the hearts of everyone as they took in the astonishing show of power present before them. Bang! Rumble! Under the attentive gazes of countless people, the dark green spiritual sea swept like a flood. Finally, while bringing along a frightening spiritual energy suppression, it pressed down on the trio. Under this absolutely tyrannical surge of spiritual energy, seemingly any kind of attack would appear weak and small. Bang! As the spiritual energy sea pressed down, it heavily collided against the astonishing attacks coming from the trio. Boom! At the instant of the collision, the loud clap of a thunderous roar resounded, with everyone within 100 kilometers being able to clearly hear it. Everyone's eyes were firmly locked onto the place of collision. Over there, spiritual energy shock waves were sweeping out akin to storms, wreaking havoc along the way. Bang! 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 Finally, the tense gazes of everyone present within this region transformed into gazes of terror as the spiritual energy sea surging with giant waves buried the flaming dragon, golden Vajra palm, as well as the radiant willow tree in an instant. Bang! Bang! The vast spiritual sea swept across the horizon, suppressing anything in its path akin to a world-ending flood. Transforming everything it touched into dust, it displayed its world-shaking might. As giant waves that blotted the sky surged from the spiritual sea, the dark green light seemed to have perfused across the entire region. Before the spiritual sea, the flaming dragon howled, the golden Vajra palm appeared to have wanted to shatter the heavens and earth apart, and the gigantic willow tree sparkled with an astonishing green glow as the three attacks merged together. Such a lineup was more than sufficient to cause the hearts of people to tremble. However, despite facing such an assault, the spiritual sea still swept out without the slightest bit of delay. Finally, under the surging of its giant waves, it completely engulfed the flaming dragon, golden Vajra palm and gigantic willow tree. Puff! Upon being engulfed by the spiritual sea, dense white steam instantly erupted from the flaming dragon. Crazily howling, the flaming dragon struggled about. Nevertheless, its gigantic body had started to dissipate at an astonishing speed. After rushing through a distance within the spiritual sea, the golden Vajra started to rapidly turn dim. The willow tree had similarly started to rapidly wither, appearing as if it had started to rot away. Enveloping the three astonishing attacks, spiritual energy howled from the spiritual sea. Finally, an invisible howl seemed to ring from it. As giant waves surged out, the three powerful attacks had unexpectedly collapsed completely apart. Transforming into glowing dots, they dissolved into the spiritual sea. Puff! As the three attacks were wiped out by the spiritual sea, the faces of Mo Xiu and the other two abruptly changed, before involuntarily spewing a mouthful of blood that dyed their chests red. Hiss! The people paying attention to the entire fight from outside of the spiritual sea's radius could not help sucking in a breath of cold air. Although they were able to sense how terrifying Mu Chen's attack was, who would have expected that the all-out attacks from Mo Xiu and the other two would actually be completely suppressed in such a head-on manner. Standing in the air, Mu Chen indifferently stared at the trio. With a flick of his finger, the spiritual sea that had suppressed their attacks howled out once more, hiding the heavens and covering the earth as it enveloped over them. Whoosh! Seeing this, the faces of the trio instantly changed. Upon observing the frightening power that the spiritual sea contained, how would they dare to let it touch them even the slightest bit? Stomping their feet, they proceeded to shoot towards three different directions. Bang! Rumble! As the spiritual sea smashed against the mountain peak, the entire majestic mountain peak instantly collapsed apart, before being razed to the ground. Bang! As the mountain peak collapsed, Mu Chen's hand seal changed once more, only for the spiritual sea to abruptly change into three separate currents. Shooting across the horizon at lightning speed, they traveled at an astonishing pace before appearing before the bodies of the trio. As the sea currents revolved around the bodies of the trio, a frightening suppression instantly sealed all of their paths of retreat. Finally, a pale shade gushed from the faces of Mo Xiu and the other two, while they did not dare to make even a single move. All three of them knew that if they made so much as a single strange movement, the spiritual sea condensed from vast and boundless spiritual energy would instantly press down on top of their heads. At that time, they would follow their predecessor, which was the mountain peak that had been razed to the ground. Fortunately, though, the spiritual energy sea currents had only surrounded them and did not press down much more. Not far away from them, Mu Chen had locked his black pupils on the trio, although he had yet to make any sound. Nevertheless, the indifferent gaze shooting from him had caused their hearts to turn cold. Therefore, exchanging glances with one another, the trio could only give bitter laughs in response. Raising their hands up, they said in astringent tones, "We've lost." With the fight reaching such a stage, there was already not much else they could do but admit defeat. The youth standing before them, Mu Chen, was absolutely not someone that would show mercy and leniency. There was not the slightest bit of doubt in them that if they continued resisting, Mu Chen would ruthlessly smash them down without the slightest bit of hesitation. As the sound of the trio admitting defeat resounded, the entire region had undoubtedly turned silent. What proceeded next was an upsurge of cries of astonishment that uncontrollably rang out. The changes happening on everyone's faces fluctuated exceedingly splendidly, as such an ending had truthfully exceeded their expectations by far too much. At the back, Xiao Huang and the people of the Academy Alliance that originally had sneers present on their faces in their wait for Mu Chen to humiliate himself had started to slowly turn stiff. The corner of Xiao Huang's mouth twitched, while his gaze became filled with darkness as he stared at the figure of Mu Chen. The move the latter had displayed caused even him to feel heart-palpitating fear. "How's that possible?" Xiao Wang hoarsely roared out. His strength was on the same level as Mo Xiao and the other two. However, from the looks of this, even after taking action together, the trio had been destroyed by Mu Chen. Behind their backs, Mo Yu and the others had faces overwhelmed with shock and terror, while their bodies started to involuntarily shiver. They never imagined that within the short span of time, that was less than even half a month, Mu Chen's strength had unexpectedly rose to such a realm. He truly has some moves. Staring at the sky, a sliver of astonishment and solemnness flashed across Wu Ling's eyes, before slowly nodding his head. Mu Chen truly is Mu Chen. Despite losing some cultivation time after being kicked out halfway through the spiritual road, with his talent, wanting to supplement that empty period of time was clearly not too big of a problem. That fellow, a splendid shadow flashed across Wu Ying's beautiful eyes as she exclaimed. The imposing aura radiating from Mu Chen was indeed somewhat astonishing. Even she was momentarily unable to come up with any derogatory words to nitpick about him. Luo Li's originally tense body had started to quietly loosen up, while a faint smile appeared on her face as she looked at the back of the youth. This youth had finally started to gradually radiate with the grace and elegance he had shown while in the spiritual road. The future him would become even more dazzling. On the contrary, though, when Qingxian slightly pouted her little red mouth, with her beautiful eyes still brimming with arrogance and haughtiness. Nevertheless, it was even inevitable for her to have a few points of astonishment appearing in her heart. She had started to discover that the youth before her eyes seemed to appear akin to a bottomless pit, one that people were completely unable to judge its depth. Even someone as arrogant and haughty as her had no choice but to admit in her heart that Mu Chen was indeed exceedingly outstanding. Standing in the air, Mu Chen didn't pay attention to the various thoughts present in the hearts of the various people that were present in this region, but continued to stare right at Mo Xiao and the other two. At this moment, the faces of the trio appeared dark and gloomy. One had to imagine that the confrontation today had truthfully given them a somewhat huge blow. After all, being able to walk to such a stage, they were naturally people that possessed exceedingly high talent. Furthermore, they weren't lacking in chances and opportunities. They had assumed that they should be considered as one the very best within the entire Great Spiritual Academy tournament. Other than people like Ji Xian, Wen Qingxian, Wu Ling, and a handful of other monstrous talents, they possessed more than sufficient qualifications to rise to the top. However, as of now, reality had given them a cruel answer. Even after collaborating, they were immediately defeated by a single attack from Mu Chen. Furthermore, what's most crucial was that the latter's cultivation was merely at spiritual energy disaster. Exchanging glances with one another, the trio proceeded to sigh. Finally, they had completely understood why even someone like Ji Xian would possess that much fear and dread for Mu Chen to the point of even sending them to probe him out. With a clench of their hands, 3 academy plaques appeared within. Flicking their fingers, they sent them flying towards Mu Chen. Being the losers, they were very clear what the rules were, despite their extreme unwillingness. After all, they had suffered much hardship and difficulties just to obtain those points. With a clench of his hand, the 3 academy plaques were sucked into his hand. Giving them a glance, what he saw made him raise his eyebrows. There was a total of 10,000 points present on those 3 academy plaques, a quantity that could be considered as extremely high. Are you 3 the subordinates of Ji Xian? Playing around with the academy plaques in his hand, Mu Chen shot a question with an indifferent manner. We've no interest in being anyone's subordinates. We merely owe him a favor, that's all. As of now, after helping him feel you out, this favor can be considered to have been paid, replied Mo Xiao. Hearing that, Mu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes. After ponder for a short while, he gave a flick of his finger, sending the 3 academy plaques shooting back towards the trio. You? Seeing this, the 3 exclaimed in shock as they looked straight towards Mu Chen. This concerns the grudges and grievances between me and Ji Xian. It's best that you guys don't interfere in the future. If there's a next time, things might not be that easy for you all, replied Mu Chen indifferently. There wasn't much of any direct grudge or grievance between him and the trio. Therefore, he didn't want to be too stiff towards them. These fellows were somewhat capable. Having too many opponents wasn't the result that Mu Chen wanted. Hearing that, the trio instantly gawked in shock. As their faces alternated between an ashen and red shade, Only after quite a while did they take their academy plaques back, before saying in embarrassment, "Thank you very much for your magnanimity, Captain Mu Chen." After all, those points were what their entire groups had obtained together. If they were to hand them all over, it would be hard for them to account towards their group's members. Therefore, despite their pride that made them not wish to take them back, in the end, rationale had triumphed over face. With a wave of his sleeve, the spiritual sea surrounding the trio rapidly dissipated away, before finally transforming into glowing dots that filled the skies, slowly fluttering down towards the bare mountain range below. Seeing this, the trio cupped their hands once again towards Mu Chen, before fluttering back and retreating. Clearly, they no longer had any plans on taking action again. Seeing Mu Chen allowing the retreat of Mo Xiu and the others, while even causing them to not have the slightest bit of anger towards him, the people present in the region could not help feeling admiration for the former. After all, not everyone could ignore the gigantic attraction brought about by 10,000 plus points. After all, such a gigantic amount of points was more than sufficient to send any group into the top 16. After seeing Mo Xiu and the other two retreating away, Mu Chen turned his body around. Locking his indifferent-looking gaze onto Xiao Huang and the people of the Multi-Academy Alliance, he said in an indifferent voice, "After enjoying such a long show, where's your payment of 20,000 points?" A sluggish expression flashed across Xiao Wang's face, before clenching his teeth and growling, "Don't be a bully, Mu Chen." "Looks like you're unwilling to hand them over by your own accord," said Mu Chen. "Why the need for this, Mu Chen? Worst come to worst, we'll not interfere with the matter between you and Ji Xian anymore. Let's bury the hatchet for this grudge and grievance." "What do you say?" said Xiao Huang in a deep voice. From the move Mu Chen made to patch up matters with Mo Xiu and the other two, the former appeared to not be so willing to offend too many people. After all, he was already a top-ranked target for many. Making too many opponents was clearly something that Mu Chen was trying his best to avoid. Therefore, this had indeed given some hope for Xiao Huang and the Multi-Academy Alliance. Raising his head to look towards Xiao Huang, whose eyes were currently sparkling, a ridiculing smile slowly curled up from the corner of his mouth. In the next moment, bringing about a chilling killing intent, his voice, which was gradually turning cold, started to ring out across the skies. "If you don't hand the points over, everyone will leave an arm here. This episode end here. Thank you for watching.